2:14 a.m., my porch light flared on 3 nights in a row. Same minute, same bright snap. I rent a small house at the edge of town, pines on 3 sides, a single road in, and a budget camera that texts a clip every time the motion sensor triggers. It was winter, the air like broken glass. I told myself it was wind, or a deer, or the neighbor's cat. Night 4, the light hit again at 2:14 while I was microwaving leftovers. The live feed showed an empty porch. I still walked to the door and looked through the peephole. A figure stood just outside the cone of light. No mask, no costume, just a dark coat and hood. He wasn't facing the door. He angled his body so I could only catch him with an edge of sight. Head tilted toward the side yard, like he was listening to the house breathe. "Hey, you okay?" I called. Nothing. The camera kept sending me black frames, as if the lens fogged the second I needed it. I phoned the non-emergency line. While I talked, the figure tracked the border of light, never stepping into the center, gliding along the perfect ring where the sensor ended, like he could see it. A patrol car turned down my road. The figure melted into the trees. The deputy found nothing but my footprints on the deck. He logged "suspicious person, no contact," suggested brighter bulbs, and cruised the loop. I sat up until dawn with every lamp on. Night 5, 2:14. Another ping. This time I stayed dark inside and moved to the back bedroom. If you stand sideways to the window, you don't silhouette. I eased the curtain an inch. Frost glittered on the yard. The sensor flicked on, which meant he was there before I saw him. He wasn't at the steps. He was at the corner of the house, head angled toward the back door. He lifted one hand and tugged at something under the gutter. The light fired again, brighter. Only then did I notice a thin line running along the siding to the sensor. Fishing line. He could trigger the beam without stepping into it. He was mapping my house, where the light started, where it died. I called 911. He didn't run. He slid to the other corner and tugged another line I hadn't seen, blinking the second sensor while he stayed in the seam of darkness between them. When the cruiser's engine echoed, he drifted into the pines. The deputies found a single set of boot prints around the foundation and a milk crate tucked behind my trash can, with a folded blanket inside, facing my bedroom window. They cut the line down and told me to order another camera for the back. I placed the order at 4 a.m., with shaking hands. I thought that would end it. In the morning, the porch was empty, except for a Polaroid on the top step, held by a clean pebble. The picture wasn't of me. It was a close shot of my door frame, the angle perfect for the sensor's blind spot. A hand resting on the jamb just outside the light. The edges were fogged like the photographer had breathed on the lens. On the white strip at the bottom, one pencil word: outside. I gave it to the deputy. For 2 quiet weeks, I slept with the cameras open on my phone. Then a storm took the power out. No sensors, no feed, just candlelight and a house ticking as it cooled. I'd almost convinced myself to sleep when I heard 2 quick taps on the back window. Not hard, polite, like a guest. I stood in the hallway and called my neighbor, a retired mechanic who keeps odd hours. "Don't go near the glass," he said. "I'll pull up and hit the lights." His truck beams swept the yard. No one there. But we saw footprints, fresh ovals in the wet snow, leading to my window, and then stopping where the flurries began erasing the trail. No prints back to the trees. After that, I overcorrected. Wired cameras front and back, heavier deadbolts, blackout curtains, bells strung on fishing line across the inside of each window, because old tricks still work. I changed my routine so 2 a.m. found me awake with coffee, waiting for a minute on a digital clock that had started to feel like a name. People ask if I ever saw his face. I didn't. He made sure I wouldn't. He learned my house better than I knew it. The dead angles, the reflective glass, the exact inch where the sensor quits. Once in a while, I still get a notification at 2:14. Motion detected. Most nights it's a stray cat or wind fingering the hedges, and some nights the clip is nothing at all, just the light flaring to life and the edge of the frame blooming white, like a lens fogged by a close, careful breath. "Locks," the deputy told me. "Keep honest people honest. Whoever he was didn't need to come in. He only needed to show me the map around me and prove he knew every border. He was already outside. I stopped turning on my hallway light after I learned a stupid fact. A peephole works both ways if the inside is bright. With a cheap reverse viewer, someone in the hall can see into your place. I live on the 7th floor of an old brick building. Thin doors, echoing corridors, motion lights that click on like applause. I never cared until the tape. I'd put a skinny strip of painter's tape across the door seam before bed, bottom corner to frame, so tiny nobody would notice. In the morning, it was snapped clean. I hadn't opened the door. I told myself it was a fluke, then remembered why I tried it. At 3:11 a.m., I'd heard a gentle twist on my knob, slow and deliberate, followed by a soft shoulder on the lock, like someone testing the slack. 2 nights later, I found a smudged fingerprint on the deadbolt knob, not mine. I cleaned everything, laid a whisper of flour along the inside threshold, and set my phone camera low to watch the light under the door. I went to bed with the living room dark. At 3:11, the hall sensors clicked. My screen showed the slit of light at the bottom of the door going gray as a shadow paused there. The toes weren't facing in. Whoever stood outside had turned sideways, toward the peephole, not me. I stood behind the coat rack so my shape wouldn't read, and nudged the peephole cover a millimeter. The hallway looked like a washed-out tunnel. What filled the lens wasn't a face. It was a small black tube pressed to the peephole. It withdrew. 30 seconds later, it returned. In, out, in, out. A method, not curiosity. I called the non-emergency line. While I whispered to the operator, a thin card slid under the door and felt for the latch. The deadbolt stopped it, but the knob clicked against the pressure like a throat. When the elevator dinged at the far end, the card vanished and the shadow went with it. The officer who came up checked the stairwell, shrugged at the empty hall, and told me to keep the chain on. We don't have chains. I bought a steel shutter peephole the next day and swapped it at midnight with shaking hands. At 3:11, the sensors clicked again. The new metal cap trembled once, like a fingernail tapped it in annoyance. In the morning, I found 2 shallow half-moon scratches around the lens, tool marks from someone trying to unscrew the peephole and failing when they hit the interior lock ring. I set my own trap, a sticky note under the mat, folded so a corner stuck out, a hair laid across the knob, a tiny pencil tick inside the jamb. If the door even flexed, I'd know. By dawn, the hair was gone, the pencil tick smeared, and the note corner mashed flat. I stared at the crooked paper, feeling dumb for needing proof I already had. Management pulled footage. The camera showed the elevator and the far end of the hall, not my door. At 3:10, the elevator arrived empty. At 3:16, the stairwell light blinked. No figure, no face, just circuitry doing what it was built to do. I shifted my couch 2 inches so it no longer sat in the peephole's line. I bought my own reverse viewer and tried it on the old lens I'd removed. With my lights on, I could see the couch, the coffee table, the lamp. With lights off, the world went mirror black. 2 evenings later, an envelope waited under my door. No name, no stamp. Inside was a 4x6 photo of my living room from the height of the peephole. Slight fisheye, edges warped, the notch in my coffee table clearly visible. The lamp I never used was on. It wasn't new. The blanket draped on the couch was the one I'd moved a week before. On the back, in pencil, a single word. Awake. I took it to the precinct. The desk sergeant logged the evidence and told me to keep the shuttered lens, add an interior camera pointed at the door, and film the hall through the peephole if I ever cracked it. If we get a face, he said, we canvass. I slept at a friend's place. When I returned the next afternoon, there was a fresh strip of blue tape on my seam, not mine, placed exactly where I used to put it. It was unbroken. Whoever did it understood my test and left me one of their own. I didn't peel it, I packed, I paid the penalty, broke the lease, and moved across town to a concrete tower where the cameras actually see the doors they're supposed to watch. I still use a magnet over the peephole at night. I still don't turn on the light near my hall. People ask why I didn't rip the door open and end it. The truth is boring. Doors are invitations. If you teach someone that yours moves when they touch it, even once, it's a lesson they'll keep. I'd rather give them a silent hallway and a lens that never blinks back. So if someone's still outside at 3:11, they're the only one staring into the dark. It started with the patio chair. I rent the end unit of a small duplex, 6-foot cedar fence, a single motion light over the back door. My bedroom window faces the yard. I keep a cheap plastic chair by the grill. 3 mornings in a row, that chair sat perfectly centered under my bedroom window, facing the glass like an audience of one. I blamed wind. I wedged a brick against a leg. Next morning, brick still there, chair under the window again. I tied the chair to the table with a bungee. In the morning, the chair was back beneath the window, and the bungee was coiled neatly on the table. That detail bothered me more than the chair. I dusted the sill with a pinch of flour and measured 5'9" from ground to lower sash. The chair adds 10 inches, just enough to see over the screen lip. I don't own a ladder. That night, I slid my bed 6 inches from the wall and watched the curtains from the corner, lights off so I wouldn't silhouette. Around 12:37 a.m., a gray square shifted on the fabric, like a shadow leaned in and then let go. In the morning, 2 faint ovals fogged the glass at nose height. The screen frame had a new hairline scratch. I called non-emergency. The officer said, maybe a raccoon twice. I pointed at the coiled bungee. He told me to keep the light on and consider a camera. The camera failed. Infrared bounced off the window and turned everything into a white mirror. So I went low-tech. Flour on the sill, a yardstick in the corner for scale, sprinklers set for 12:35 to soak anyone under the window. I also dragged the chair into the garage. At 12:40, I heard 2 polite knocks on the back door. I didn't move. The sprinklers hissed on, something thumped the fence. In the morning, the chair was still in the locked garage, but an upside-down 5-gallon bucket sat under my window like a substitute. One of my buckets from under the deck was missing. The flour showed the same twin ovals. My motion sensor had a neat square of duct tape on the lower edge, angled to blind it from below. That's when it sank in. Someone was studying my house. They knew where I kept the chair. They knew the sensor's blind cone. They had a plan B when I hid plan A. I padlocked the gate. I screwed the bucket to the deck joist so it would scream if pulled. I dropped a wooden dowel in the window track, added privacy film to the lower pane, and ran a thin bell string behind the curtain. If the sash lifted, it would chime once. The next night, the light still didn't trip. Fresh tape. I flipped the switch manually, flooding the yard. The bucket didn't budge. The bell stayed quiet. I felt stupid and went back to bed. At 2:06 a.m., colder air pressed across the room. The bell gave a single dry kiss of sound. I said, steady and too loud, "I'm on the phone with police," then actually dialed and kept talking until the dispatcher answered. While I explained, I heard a rubbery squeak, plastic sliding on paint. The bucket. The patrol car arrived fast. The yard was empty. The bucket was still screwed down. The officer's flashlight found new tape on the light, pressed so clean it looked factory. He also found a sliver of black foam wedged between screen and frame at the lower corner, just enough to pry a gap if I had lifted the sash in a panic. "Whoever this is knows hardware," he said. They'd add extra patrols. 2 quiet nights passed. On the 3rd, my neighbor texted at 12:50. "Your gate's open." I looked. The padlock hung closed, but the latch sat outside the hasp. Whoever came had lifted the gate up and over the pin, then set it back and reclosed my lock like a courtesy. I through-bolted a longer hasp so the gate can't be lifted. I added a second sensor by the window, wired to a simple ding chime inside. No app, no Wi-Fi. I moved my bed to the other wall. The last thing was small and mean. A week later, after 7 quiet nights at 12:37, I found a tiny clear circle stuck high on the outside of the glass, the size of a coin. It's the kind of sticker you use so a suction cup will hold. I don't own suction cups. I peeled it off with a razor and sealed it in a plastic bag. I keep the bag in a drawer, not because it'll catch anyone, but because it reminds me what this actually was. Not a ghost story, just a person with time and tools and patience, treating my life like a practice field. People say to get a dog. Maybe I will. For now, the chair stays in the garage, the bucket stays screwed down, the bell string stays tight, and the tape on the light never lasts long. Sometimes, when the house goes quiet and the clock slides past 12:37, I still feel the air change, thin and cold, as if a face is just beyond the privacy film, breathing softly against the glass. Someone out there likes things neat. Someone's still outside,